Welcome. I'd like to introduce you to an initiative entitled Civil Society Act Beyond Borders, Approximating the Tree of Vision of the Israeli-Palestinian Coexistence. This project was funded by the European Union to be carried out by the Future World Center in Cyprus. This presentation was created by Dr. Alexander Christakis, Gail Underwood, and myself, Jeff Diedrich. The intent of this presentation is to provide an overview of the process utilized and promote further dialogue. The Structured Dialogic Design, or SDD process, was used to enable the group, consisting of 11 Palestinians and 12 Israelis, to transcend the present situation and its projection into the future, and to create a desirable vision of coexistence. Shared ownership of the problem situation and the desirable solution by the stakeholders is essential. Change occurs when solutions to complex problems are co-constructed by all stakeholders versus either a top-down or bottom-up approach. SDD is a methodology that mobilizes those involved to move forward and take action. The discovery of humility by the appreciation of complexity helps the stakeholders learn together. When engaged in deep dialogue, we realize the benefit of other perspectives. These perspectives ultimately lead to better solutions. You'll notice in this slide we have the current situation. This is a situation we all experience. And what we usually do is we take the current situation and we project. We designate a future that is somewhat different from the present situation, but not drastically different. The goal with the Israelis and Palestinians was to give them the opportunity to create a situation that was drastically different from the current situation, a visionary future of what ought to be. The goal is to close the planning gap between the current situation, the extrapolated future, and the visionary future. We recognize that there are constraints or obstacles that get in the way of achieving the visionary future. This is referred to as the wall of obstacles. Next, we need to determine the actions that, if addressed, will overcome the obstacles to penetrate the wall and approximate the visionary future, or the vision tree. The process of SDD involves 3 co-laboratories, or collabs, including 1, the Tree of Vision collab, 2, the Wall of Obstacles collab, and 3, the Action Agenda collab to penetrate the wall and approximate the Tree of Vision. In each collab, stakeholders respond to a triggering question. There was a recognition that a complex situation existed, specifically the coexistence of Israelis and Palestinians. The different leaves represent different perspectives, and you can see that there is no particular order to this complex situation. In response to a triggering question, participants generated descriptors of what a visionary future would look like. These descriptors were then organized by the group into clusters or categories of similar meaning. Following this, participants voted on the relative importance of the descriptors. Ultimately, they developed a vision tree indicating the deep drivers to distinguish the leverage points of the ideas. To create the desirable future as depicted by the vision tree, stakeholders must overcome the wall of obstacles and nurture the tree from the roots to the branches versus solely focusing on the branches. The triggering question was, what are descriptors of a mutually beneficial coexistence of Israelis and Palestinians? Participants independently and silently generated 69 descriptors. Using the Cognoscope software, participants made pairwise value judgments regarding the influence of one idea over another. For instance, will achieving X significantly help in achieving Y? You'll notice 5 different levels. Level 5 would be analogous to the roots of a tree, while level 1 would be analogous to the canopy or the top of the tree. The descriptors at the bottom of the tree have the most influence on systemic change. The deepest driver, descriptor 17, which received 3 votes and has the highest leverage point, reads, mutual agreements and programs in order to create mutual basis of understanding. This deep driver, with the arrows moving upward, has an influence on everything else in the map. You'll also notice that at some levels there are multiple descriptors grouped together. This is referred to as a cycle. So what does it mean to be a cycle in a cycle? Within each cycle, each idea influences the other. So as the number of items in a cycle increases, so does the complexity of the situation. During the Wall of Obstacles collab, participants identify obstacles that are preventing us from reaching the vision tree. The triggering question was, what are obstacles to what ought to be to create an ideal, mutually beneficial model of coexistence of Israelis and Palestinians? Approximately 49 obstacles were identified, and this map, superimposed over a wall, reflects the obstacles that received the most votes of relative importance. Again, using the Cognoscope software, participants determine the deep drivers. Those at or toward the bottom are often the most influential in systemic change. The deepest drivers, in a cycle with one another, included Obstacle 41, receiving 3 votes, religious fundamentalists, and Obstacle 5 with 6 votes, lack of strong movement that educates. If addressed, they will have significant influence on those above it connected by the arrows. Traditional approaches to complex situations often focus on the top 2 to 3 obstacles that receive the most votes of relative importance. In this case, it would mean Obstacle 20, which received 14 votes, Obstacle 10, receiving 12 votes, and Obstacle 9, that received 10 votes, would be addressed. As you can see, the wall of obstacles remains intact, preventing us from reaching the vision tree. It's a common phenomenon in SDD to discover that items deemed to have significant importance by the group often end up toward the top of the tree. By addressing the obstacles in accordance with priorities, we do not approximate the vision, but rather perpetuate the status quo. For the action option collab, the triggering question was, what are action options which, if adopted and implemented, will overcome the wall of obstacles and help us create an ideal, mutually beneficial model of coexistence of Israelis and Palestinians? Participants broke into small groups to develop action options to overcome the obstacles and embrace a mutually beneficial coexistence. The actions were translated into respective languages and shared with the group. The wall of obstacles in this metaphor should be perceived as a harsh winter that has killed the vision tree, and only through collaborative action by the Israelis and the Palestinians can we nurture the tree back to life from the winter of hostilities to the spring of peace and coexistence, approximating the vision tree. As a review, Collab 1 focused on vision descriptors, building a vision tree. Collab 2, in the context of the vision tree, identified barriers to reaching the vision tree. Finally, in Collab 3, actions were identified that, if collaboratively addressed by all stakeholders, would penetrate the wall of obstacles and approximate the vision tree. By looking at the results of the collabs, we observe a couple things. First, we have a higher convergence on the vision than on the obstacles, and a higher level of complexity on the obstacles than the vision. In other words, it's much easier for the stakeholders to agree on the vision than to agree on how to penetrate the wall of obstacles to reach the vision tree. There are 2 models of stakeholder engagement using the structured dialogic design process. The first is face-to-face structured dialogue using Cognoscope software. This occurs in the same place and at the same time, much like the Palestinian-Israeli collab in Cyprus. The second model is a hybrid model that employs both face-to-face and virtual structured dialogue. The benefit to the virtual dialogue is that participants can participate from all over the world, and you get a diverse perspective greater than if it's face-to-face. In summary, SDD is unique in that it focuses on the distinctions among the ought to be, the can be, and the will be. It seeks to create first the tree of vision. This is done collaboratively. Next, we construct the wall of obstacles in the context of the tree of vision. Then we converge on an action agenda that will tear down the wall of obstacles, nurture the tree of vision, and this is referred to as the will be done. Finally, we come to an agreement and a commitment to act beyond borders with an understanding of the benefits of mutual coexistence. If you'd like to learn more about this project or structured dialogic design, please visit these websites. Thank you for your time.